Um, welcome everybody. We have a large crowd here. So my name is Marjorie and I'm from the English department. I'm very happy to have a workshop on, or this is actually speech 2, second session. Last week we had the first session. So this week I'd like to focus on analyzing a famous speech by J.F. Kennedy. So I have given you a set of handouts there. So since most of you are English majors, so I think we can actually talk a little bit in detail when we talk about the rhetorical features. So what is an inaugural address, right? Inaugural speech. An inaugural speech is a speech for a very specific event. So Kennedy sworn into office of his presidency. So I'm going to give a little bit of information here before I will play part of the clip. Okay, it's a very, very long speech, as you can see on the handout. How many pages is that? Altogether 3 pages, right? And almost 100 lines. So I'll only play for about 5 minutes to get a sense of the way he presented. So I want to focus particularly on how he used rhetorical devices to make this speech very, very famous, popular. There are also some very memorable lines as well. So a little bit of the historical background. He took the oath of office to become the nation's 35th president. At that time, quite a few people, right, 20,000 people came to witness this particular event. Like all presidents, they all face different kind of issues, right? His audience at that time and the final point here. So when he gave this speech, one of the purposes was actually to inspire the nation and to signal the challenges of the Cold War and his hope for peace in the nuclear age. So many critics actually consider this to be one of the most memorable, enduring speeches in history, and some of you might have heard of this particular line. Right? I will talk more about the rhetorical features later on. Ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. So at this stage, just want to know whether you know the rhetorical feature being used to construct a sentence like this. Do you know the name? What is the name? Well, what is quite special about this? The structure of the 2 clauses actually balance itself out, right? Ask not what your country. So we swap a certain words like the word country and can do, right? Ask not what your country can do for you, but ask what you can do for your country. So these 2 words are being swapped, and then the sentence becomes, well, I mean, the meaning of this particular message becomes totally different. So I will talk about how do we name this particular feature. So many of them actually were very, very impressed by the speech. So let me play the clip for you first. Where am I sharing the screen? So you can, or maybe press and you can have a set of this one. So the speech, I mean, when I play the clip, it starts from we observe today until what line? Line 34 on the second page at the top of page 2. Okay, 34, line 34. So let's have a sense of the effectiveness of this speech.
Vice President Johnson, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chief Justice, President Eisenhower, Vice President Nixon, President Truman, Reverend clergy, fellow citizens. We observe today not a victory of party, but a celebration of freedom, symbolizing an end as well as a beginning, signifying renewal as well as change. For I have sworn before you and Almighty God the same solemn oath our forebears prescribed nearly a century and 3/4 ago. The world is very different now, for man holds in his mortal hands the power to abolish all forms of human poverty and all forms of human life. And yet the same revolutionary beliefs for which our forebears fought are still at issue around the globe. The belief that the rights of man come not from the generosity of the state, but from the hand of God. We dare not forget today that we are the heirs of that first revolution. Let the word go forth from this time and place to friend and foe alike that the torch has been passed to a new generation of Americans born in this century, tempered by war, disciplined by a hard and bitter peace, proud of our ancient heritage, and unwilling to witness or permit the slow undoing of those human rights to which this nation has always been committed and to which we are committed today at home and around the world. Let every nation know, whether it wishes us well or ill, that we shall pay any price, bear any burden, meet any hardship, support any friend, oppose any foe to assure the survival and the success of liberty. This much we pledge and more. To those old allies whose cultural and spiritual origins we share, we pledge the loyalty of faithful friends. United, there is little we cannot do in a host of cooperative ventures. Divided, there is little we can do, for we dare not meet a powerful challenge at odds and split asunder. To those new states whom we welcome to the ranks of the free, we pledge our word that one form of colonial control shall not have passed away, merely to be replaced by a far more iron tyranny. We shall not always expect to find them supporting our view, but we shall always hope to find them strongly supporting their own freedom, and to remember that in the past, those who foolishly sought power by riding the back of the tiger ended up inside. To those people in the huts and villages of half the globe struggling to break the bonds of mass misery, we pledge our best efforts to help them help themselves for whatever period is required, not because the communists may be doing it, not because we seek their votes, but because it is right. If a free society cannot help the many who are poor, it cannot save the few who are rich.
Okay, so that's quite enough for our purpose. Let's go back to the PowerPoint. So if you have a look at the handout on page, it is page 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. There are a few show. number of rhetorical terms and techniques of persuasion, right? So only after having heard the first part of the speech, does any use of language actually strike you as being interesting, unusual to your ears? Yes. Short. Any part of the first half of the speech actually makes you think, oh, this is interesting? Any particular usage? Like the structure of the speech, the beginning? Or Preston?
There's a lot of like juxtaposition.
Good. Can you give us some example?
As well as
Sorry?
symbolizing an and as well as a
Very good. Can you please tell us the line when you're giving examples? Line.
line two.
Line 2. End and beginning. Juxtaposition. Good. Or contrast, right? Preston? Is that what you have in mind? Juxtaposition, end and beginning.
I'm trying to find.
Sure. Take your time.
We have to like.
We're not in a hurry.
I think this one. 25.
Line 25. Yeah.
And then for example, we shall not only find them about you, but we shall always hope to relevant so uses word devices to.
Yeah, very good. We shall not, and then we shall, right? Also parallel sentence structure. Good. Talking about parallel, sorry.
Not necessarily the text, but then the line that you show us, like
Us not, yeah. It's in the speech, but we don't have time to play the whole thing yet, definitely. Yeah, that's very interesting because if we have a look at also line 20 to those, right? To those old allies. He's addressing different parties here, right? To those old allies. And then line 24 to those new states. So it's very structured in terms of how he starts these paragraphs to those people in the huts and villages, right? So listeners, when they heard these very parallel structure and very familiar terms being repeated, they will know that he's addressing different groups here. So to our sister republics and to the World Assembly of Sovereign States, and so on and so forth. So let's have a look at these in a little bit more detail. So this speech is actually adjourned for statistician, people who like to analyze like these strategies. Is full of them, right? So let's have a look. First one I want to talk about is alliteration. You might remember what is alliteration, right? So it's a repetition of the same initial consonant between two words that juxtapose to each other, right? A repetition of the initial consonants. So we have some examples here, like is it line 98? Line 16, pay any price, bear any burden. So where is the alliteration? Pay any price, bear any burden. So pay and here, right? Pay a price and then bear any burden. Especially when he was giving the speech, he took his time, right? He slowed down. Articulation was extremely clear. Pauses at important places to make emphasis. And so when he read out a line like this, actually people could hear the alliteration, pay any price, bear any burden. And then another example is line 18, survival and success. Second term you might not be familiar with is called anaphora here. Anaphora help us to understand the feature I mentioned to you just now, to those old airlines, right? So what is it? It's a repetition of a word or phrase at the beginning of successive phrases, clauses, or lines. In other words, at the beginning of each sentence, at the beginning of each paragraph, if you use the same phrase like to those, to those, to those, we call this particular strategy anaphora. Okay, so it's a good way to enhance the coherence of the speech. We haven't looked at the later part, but we actually have another example. Maybe we can have a look at the speech itself, let both sides. It's quite similar to those allies. Speech. both sides. So this part here, at the later part of the speech, we can see, right, let both sides explore what problems unite us. Let both sides, for the first time, formulate serious and precise, and let both sides. This is what we call anaphora, okay? Next example is called anastrophe. Anastrophe is the transposition of normal word order. Sometimes some people may call it like inversion, inverting the order of words, right? Ask not. So what's the original phrase look like? Ask not is now swapped, right? The order. So the original order will be do not ask, do not ask. Dare not is do not dare. Yeah, this much we pledge this much, right? So by reversing the order of these words, what do you think is a purpose? Ask not what your country can do for you. Place the emphasis, yeah. Make the clauses also more parallel and much stronger as well. Ask not. And the third example here, this much we pledge. What is the effect compared to we pledge this much? Pledge is like making a promise to the world, right? So this much we pledge versus we pledge this much. We are here emphasizing the things that he has just mentioned, right? This is the thing that he wants to emphasize. We are promising the world these. So emphasizing the demonstrative pronoun here, this much we pledge. Antithesis is what both of you mentioned just now. Contrast, right? We have type antithesis. This is contrast of ideas or words in a parallel structure. So we have ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. Another very similar example is from line 56 to 57. Let us never negotiate out of fear, but let us never fear to negotiate. This time, what words are being highlighted and reverse order? Just now is country and you, right? And this example, we are swapping the order of negotiate and fear. Let us never negotiate, and the next one is let us never fear, right? So it's swapping, but then meaning completely changed. Line 1, we have an example. I think Shaw's mentioned, right? Oh, is it this one? Not this one. We observe today not a victory of party, but a celebration of freedom. Not this, but that, right? Not X, but Y. It's always a juxtaposition, juxtaposing ideas alongside each other. So it's easy to hold the ideas in balance in people's mind when you are employing strategies like this. And then later in the speech, not as a call to bear arms, not as a call to battle, but a call to bear the burden. Bear the burden, of course, is alliteration, right? So it's like almost every sentence we can find a particular rhetorical feature being employed by the president here or whoever wrote the speech. Here you see an asterisk, little star. I am trying to talk about the first two examples here. Apart from calling them antithesis, we can also call them contrapuntalism. Anyone here plays the piano? Contrapuntalism? I think students in the past told me this is a musical term. You can see it in musical score. So it's a reference to the musical technique of counterpoint, where, for example, the left and right hands play different melodies on the piano, which combine harmonically. Contrapuntalism. Resonance? What do you mean?
Yeah.
Why resonance?
Because I think it is that which combine.
But the two forces, the effect, you can say, it creates resonance for people. But then this is the name. Okay, the name of this strategy is called Contrapuntalism is the name. Resonance is the effect. Thank you. Yep, I agree with you. Only the first two we can say employ contrapuntalism because of the idea that only two words are being swapped and the whole meaning is completely different. Right? The other two examples do not work like this. So only the first two examples are examples of contrapuntalism, keeping the sentence in balance. When you utter a sentence like this, people sometimes will think, what is this person? They will actually pay attention and then revisit the word you say, right? Because they know something is going on. You are changing some words. So what are you trying to say? Emphasis is being placed on these words as a result. And not to mention that the words are actually being repeated in the second half of the clause, right? So you're repeating the keywords in the second half of the clause. Contrapuntalism. I've got just a couple more examples, and then I want to look at a valedictorian speech, graduation speech, written by a student, so we can see how these techniques can be employed in more sort of everyday life. Consonants is a repetition of consonant sounds within words or ending of words, usually ending of words. Okay, because we remember, right? Consonants are consonants. Okay, consonants at the end of the word. So whether it wishes it well or ill, that we shall, all these I have highlighted for you, right? Examples of consonants. So it's very melodic when he was giving the speech, okay? Not just because of the balance that he's keeping for the audience, all the juxtaposition, and even individual words, lots of alliteration, sounds that keep repeating at the end of words, right? It's like, not to say it's like listening to a song, but similar to that effect. Keeps people's interest, also help them pay attention to the content. Of course, using the word here, conjunction or, also juxtaposing ideas, right? Whether it wishes as well or ill, completely in contrast. Some metaphors are being used in this speech as well. So figurative use of language meanings are not literal. So bonds of mass mystery or chains of poverty. So which particular part has metaphor been used? The bonds of mass mystery or chains of poverty. Why, in other words, why are these two examples of metaphor? Where can we find the metaphor? Passage? Chains of poverty, you're reading the other thing. Which particular word suggests that it is a metaphor? Chains, thank you. Chains are something physical, right? Chains, but then poverty is something abstract. But then, of course, we can understand why this metaphor is being used. It's like when you're poor, it feels like your hands are being tied. You don't have a lot of choices, right? Things happen to you, not out of your own accord. You do not have the opportunity to choose what you want. The chains of poverty. What about the first one? The bonds of mass misery. I think it's similar idea of binding people, bonds, okay, the bonds of mass misery, actually putting a huge number of people together. Why? What characteristic do they share? They share, they are together because they are all miserable, right? The mass misery, the bonds of mass misery. So the idea is that America and also JFK, he's suggesting that they together have the ability to break the bond, right, and break the chains of poverty. And he's making a lot of promises to different airlines, new partners, etc. Next example, we actually heard this part in the clip just now. Those who foolishly sought power by riding the back of the tiger ended up inside. What does that mean? This can actually be literal, right? Literal. I mean, if anyone is really that foolish and decide to ride on the back of a tiger, then the tiger will eat you. You ended up being inside the belly of the tiger. So why is it a metaphor? Any suggestions? Cold War period, history.
Sort of opposing sides that they sort of power, but then they are doing it very emotionally. They're just gonna get something.
Yeah, and so, yeah, I agree with you. And also a little bit more historical is that it's actually the tiger metaphor in particular is associated with USSR at that time, Russia, USSR. So it's, in order to avoid direct confrontation with USSR, therefore, Kennedy employed this particular metaphor. It's also being very playful, right? Break the seriousness of the speech. And if you remember, actually, he paused at that stage because people were sort of laughing. It's supposed to be a joke. It's humorous. So it enlivens the speech by touching the reader's imagination, so that, yeah, they can visualize, right? Riding on the back of the tiger being eaten. Therefore, he's trying to make something very abstract, concrete, right? The abstract idea is USSR, abstract idea, and to imagine the country being like a tiger. Other examples are parallelism. We are all very familiar with that. So line 21 and 23, let's have it's also, you can say united and divided is also contrast, right? United, there is little we cannot do. He's urging the country to what? To be united, right? United, there is little we cannot do in a host of cooperative ventures. If the country is divided, there is little we can do. I can paraphrase it, right? I can say, please, everyone, unite together and fight for our country. This is the meaning. But then he employs this particular structure: united, divided. So it's, yeah, very powerful. So part of those rhetorical strategies, using anaphora, using contrapuntalism, consonants, he also tried to touch the chords of people's heart by using emotion arousing words, like these words: freedom, liberty, everyone cares about. Universal values, right? Freedom and liberty, and also arousing fear among the audience as well, like maximum danger, human poverty, and making reference to the past in order to talk about the present and the future. So I have sworn before you and Almighty God the same solemn oath our forebears prescribed nearly a century and 3/4 ago. To make it really clear that it's a continuation of the great work. And finally, we have stimulating the audience, whether by using these strategies like rhetorical questions. What are rhetorical questions? Do we remember rhetorical questions? Line 86 to 88. Or 86, line 86. Oh, it's not 86. Oh, here, 80, these lines. 82 to 84. Can we forge against these enemies a grand and global alliance? Immediately, grand and global, what is it? Alliteration. I think it's half alliteration because GR and GL not really the same, but then it's half grand and global. North and south contrast, east and west. They can assure a more fruitful life for all mankind. Will you join in that historic effort? So rhetorical question means he expects the answer to be yes, right? No one at that stage, because of the power of the speech, will say no after he has said so many things, evoking history, talking about the pledge, the promises to the world, what they can do together, break mystery, problems of poverty, etc. So he's here urging the audience and the rest of the country, right? Will you join in that historic epic? It's also quite interesting the way he changed from the pronoun we to you, right? So we already is some sort of solidarity, and then he's like distributing responsibility to everybody from we to you. You let us also. So having talked about these rhetorical strategies, we let us have a look at the graduation speech in the handout. Okay, so what do you think? Can we find some use of rhetorical skills? Even name them? So first paragraph is the usual address, right? Distinguished guests, principals, lecturers, members of staff, fellow graduates. So starting from the second paragraph, what kind of strategies do you think the student has employed? Let's take turns. Sure, name some of them that you notice. Nothing at all? Not at this stage? What about question? Yeah, so can you give us some examples?
I could remember.
Yep, so parallel structure or repetition. I could remember this, I could remember that. And last week, in order to build trust, do you remember what we should do at the beginning of this, of giving a speech to build trust with your audience? We can share our mental process, right? Or something about your background. So here the student actually say, I thought. It's actually quite intimate, right? Sharing your personal thinking with the audience. So this is a strategy, I thought. Sharing mental process. Build trust with the audience. Example, I could remember, right? So 4 uses of I could remember. And then we have this particular short line, we are graduating. This is actually being repeated quite a few times, right? It's quite short. You can say punchy. Punchy is like powerful. We are graduating. Short. Next paragraph, what have we got? Some of you might not get this particular reference, do you? How many 10 years have we got? Does it sound familiar? Yes or no? You do know why? Firstly? Yes, a TV reference, right? Actually, the TV program was years and years and years ago. So making reference to popular culture, you can say. Also, in order to build trust and relationship with the audience, right? So mention something topical or that most people will know. Reference to pop culture, also to build trust. So people who notice that, right, probably will smile listening to that, smile to themselves. Now we once again see this particular phrase or sentence being repeated, we are graduating. Why do you think the student repeated, we are graduating here? Apart from emphasizing the fact that they are graduating, right? This is a graduation speech. I think it's like breaking up the pace of the speech in case he has lost anybody, and if he said we are graduating, that people say, oh, I've heard this sentence before, right? So it's like a little bit of the purpose of arousing, bringing them back to where they were. Then another example here is using quotation, right? Famous quotation, ask not. This is what we just looked at. Here, he's talking about he's actually playing around with words, right? So we ought to ask ourselves not what our college has done for us, but what we can do for our college. So we have to analyze this. I would say this is, we can call this elegant variation. Elegant variation. Another quotation there from former Vice Chancellor of Chinese University quotation: life should be romantic. Being a university student should be romantic. Use of quotation. Today we are graduating. Repetition of parallel structures. Some of us will do this, some of us will do that. Moving to the final part of the speech, we are graduating. We may be physically weak, but we can always remain mentally strong. What do you think about this sentence? What particular rhetorical skill? Do you remember the name? The contrapuntalism? Changing two words usually, contrapuntalism. Here is physically weak and mentally strong. So what kind of compare? Contrast or antithesis, right? Contrast or antithesis. And here another example of past and future. Contrast. Let us is appeal for action, right? So it's good to engage the audience by asking them to do things together. So let us to make an appeal, and then let us. Let us. What is the name of this? Remember? To our allies, to our partners, partner countries, that particular this one here, right? To those allies and or let both sides at the beginning of each sentence, repetition of that, so it's called anaphora. Anaphora. Oops. Three just of letters. Here. Repetition of the word dream. And don't forget to still use these cohesive devices, right? So when you are at the end of the speech, then give them a signal. So finally, heartfelt congratulations. And the rest. So we can see here a relatively short speech. The student managed to employ quite a number of strategies that we have looked at from JFK's inaugural address. Pretty much what I want to share with you about analyzing speech, since we only have you here. Like last time, you are free to choose whether you want to practice oral skill by giving another speech to us today. Last time we talked about photography or hobby, right? Yeah. Last time you didn't give speech, did you? No. Yep. So anything you particularly want to talk about, like living in Hong Kong, or compare the living between in China and Hong Kong, or any topic that you'd like to share? And China, which part of China? The whole of China or your hometown? Sorry, very different. Yeah. So do you want to tell me your hometown then? Where is it? Hometown. Zhejiang. Okay. Do you need a minute or two to structure your thought? The points you want to talk about?
Yes.
Okay. Do you want to try, Preston? Oh, I want to know about your experience in the UK. Can you? Yeah. So.
Start with
what you study, okay?
study
Linguistics.
University of Central Manchester.
He went on an exchange program last year or last semester. Last semester. So you can also think about that later. Yeah. So please, Preston.
Yeah, so linguistics, there are three modules. It's very funny, like we only have three modules. But then in Syria we have six.
Yeah.
Even more.
So everyone there only took 3 modules in a semester.
And yeah.
What about workload? I shouldn't be asking you a question because you are giving a speech. I'll ask questions later, but I'm too curious.
Like you only need to work on one less. Like each will be like 90% the entire thing. And that's all I need to do. I don't need to write like 1,000. But I really prefer the UK style. Students are more active in a way. Yeah, they ask a lot of questions and phrase, express their thoughts, and they're really critical about the issue, especially in linguistics. It's like I think what linguistics strength is more or less the research based view, right? So we need to have more critical thoughts to the issue, theories. So yeah, I really love that drive. You need to think about the mainstream theories of actually like
Thank you. Question. I do have a question. So you were an exchange student. Were you the only exchange student there? Yeah. Okay. Were you quite active as well? Did you participate in a lot of group discussions and class discussion? Ah, good.
It's weird that
Yeah.
So, yeah. I mean, I was very little person for that but yeah.
Afterwards, it changed your mind. You're actually more extroverted than you thought you were. That's very, very good. Yeah.
That's a massive.
Really? Oh, so you still keep in touch with them? That's nice. Very good, very good. And you're going back to the UK in summer. Are you going to visit your friends in Lancashire?
I mean, not necessarily.
From Germany. Oh.
Yeah, I'm planning to.
Cool. Good. You, short, tell us something about different experience.
So first of all, I think that the major difference between my whole time and the Hong Kong is the Hong Kong people live a very fast lifestyle. Yeah. In fact, that people walking on the street and I just think they are running. Yeah, they're not walking, they're running. Because in our hometown, we just, usually people don't have any, how to say, very busy or very critical things to do. Yeah, so they just in the coffee bar, yeah, or just drink teas. So I think this is a major difference that also Hong Kong is very free. Yeah, very, because in my people will judge on what you wear and what you eat. They will judge on you that you are very luxurious, like, because if you wear something very, very expensive, people will judge it as, oh, you are very luxurious. And if you don't know, people don't mind whether you live
Differently.
yes. So I think the Hong Kong may have a more free lifestyle as we have it as our own. Because Zhejiang is also developed. Yeah, it's also developed. And because we are near the Shanghai city, so Zhejiang is also a very rich province in China.
I see. Thank you. Any questions for him?
Really, really
Also compared to the UK, right?
Yeah.
People walk very leisurely.
Yeah. Very fast. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing about Hong Kong. It is fast, but it is efficient.
Yeah, everyone after they have visited the UK, coming back to Hong Kong say Hong Kong is so much more efficient, right? Because if you live in the UK, you can only handle one thing a day. If you go to the bank, that is the only thing that you can handle because it takes hours and hours. Right? People are so inefficient. But in Hong Kong, you can tick off several things per day. Also efficient here.
Very efficient.
Yeah, MTR.
Yeah.
So the second point you mentioned, so I gather the idea is that everyone more or less is the same. They do not dare to stand out from the crowd. Is that the idea in China or in Zhejiang?
Because people will.
Some people judge each other, right? So if I don't want to be judged, then I want to look like the other person. So everyone will be more or less the same.
I think it's very bad habits in China because people will judge others.
But do you think it's my idea that because they don't want to be judged, then everyone will try to live like everyone else because they don't want to stand out, right? If you stand out, then you will be pointed at.
If you stand out, you need to be yourself, and other people will.
You can't express yourself.
Yes.
And in Hong Kong, you can. You feel like
yes, because people will not judge you.
They're not interested in you because
it's not because they are not. Because if they just want to, all people are not material. Yeah, but they just like to judge.
But if they're strangers to you, how do they judge you?
Like just
talk about you at your back or just beside you.
But you are just walking. They will stare.
That's quite scary.
She is interesting. We're just strange clothing. Yes.
Okay. So have you been back home after spending some time in Hong Kong? No. I mean, now you have spent several months in Hong Kong. Right? Have you been back to your hometown?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Do you think you behave differently, slightly differently?
Yes.
You have to be quite conscious to be part of them again. No.
Because I just
you don't care.
Live by myself. Yeah.
So lots of people point at you and talk about
It's just Maybe half of the class. They're just talking about. Yeah.
So you're quite used to that.
So like maintaining their.
Good. Okay, see. I think that's good. Since this is spontaneous speech, right? Once again, the structure can be quite difficult. You have 2 points. You have how many points? 2 points. Yeah, the structure wasn't that clear, but then the content is interesting. Yeah. So remember, even when we have the pressure to give a spontaneous speech, try to structure some points. Like at least say something like, "I think I have 2 points to respond to that." When you say things like this, people think your points are well thought of, right? So you actually have given some thoughts to them. So it's always a good strategy, I think. If possible, also summarize them a little. Say, yeah, I have talked about a few points. Yeah. So even though it's spontaneous and you're under a lot of pressure, people thought you are confident, you are a well-trained speaker as well. So thank you for coming. I think you can do the QR code thing. Where is it?
Yeah.
At the bottom?
The
The icon. This one. Okay. So please. And many of you at the back, if you're interested, you can also do the course, not course evaluation, workshop evaluation. Okay. I think upcoming we also have some more IELTS workshop, right? Upcoming, do you know? Yeah. And George, you said you want to do this by yourself, right? Without going to any lessons or workshops, IELTS. You don't care. Actually, the speaker, Chris, what is his surname? Chris Wong? Is it Chris Wong?